our second Open Dialogue series, where we'll be talking about the role of police and others from Marikana to Khayelitsha and sort of the themes of accountability and transparency. We've got a great panel today, and thank you all for coming. I know it's sort of 2 weeks before the office closes. We'll also be podcasting the entire event by tomorrow on our website, which is www.osf.org.za. So if you don't want to be included in the recording, then you just need to let us know after the session. I'm not going to speak a lot. I'm not going to give you long introductory biographies. We are waiting for a taxi from Khayelitsha for some of the activists who've been involved in the commission. I'll just give you a quick snapshot of who's on the panel and how we get into the afternoon's event. To my left is Kathleen, who's a lawyer at the Center for Applied Legal Studies, who's been at the Marikana Commission from day one, and who has actually been responsible for bringing in some of the key expert witnesses on public policing at the Marikana Commission of Inquiry. She'll be followed by Tebogo, who's a lawyer for SERI, the Socio-Economic Rights Institute, who recently just won the IJR's Reconciliation Award for the work that they've done with the Marikana families and victims, and they're representing a lot of the families of mine workers who were actually killed on that day, just sort of almost a year ago. The board will be followed by Ax, who said I should call him an aspiring troublemaker, otherwise also known as a social justice activist for the Social Justice Coalition, who's been part of the group of organizations that have called for a commission of inquiry into the breakdown of relations between the police in Khayelitsha and the community there. And so he'll be talking about that experience. He'll be followed by Zaki Ahmed, who I think most of you know doesn't really need any introduction, but is currently the director of Unifunan Quasi, who's also been instrumental in the establishment and monitoring of the Khayelitsha Commission of Inquiry. And then we have Lucas Bunting from the UWC Community Law Center, who's considered a policing institutional order expert, and he'll try and link the two commissions and try and give us a summary of some of the key issues that are emerging and issues that civil society should be vigilant about. So we'll start with Kathleen, and they'll each have 10 minutes, and then after that we'll open up for Q&A.
Thank you. Hi everybody, it's lovely to be here today. We don't have a lot of time, and I think it would be quite useful at the end to engage more with question and answer, so I'm going to give as much information as I can in a short space, but sort of more to provide you with an overview of our involvement in the Commission. So just a brief background, the Marikana Commission of Inquiry was established after August of 2012, and it was established to investigate matters of public, national and international concern that arise from the events that happened in Marikana in the Northwest Province in the week of the 9th to the 16th of August of last year. And the Commission has been established mostly as a fact-finding commission to investigate exactly what happened in that week that led to the death of 44 individuals, security guards of Lonmin, the mine where it happened, policemen as well as the miners, and then that led to over 75 people being injured, damage, destruction to property, and over 275 people being arrested. The Commission started hearings at the beginning of October, but then was adjourned, and Tebogo will speak a bit more about that, and then started hearings on the 22nd of October of last year. And originally the Commission was established in its terms of reference to sit for a period of 4 months, but has been extended subsequent to that on a number of occasions because the work is not yet done. The Commission was divided, when the Commission started having the hearings, it was divided by Judge Farland, the chair of the Commission, into 2 broad categories, and we distinguish Phase 1 of the Commission and Phase 2. Phase 1 of the Commission of Inquiry is focused more on factually what happened in the week of the 9th to the 16th of August, and it's also focused on the actions of the police, and it's also investigating the actions of the mine workers. Phase 2 will then focus more on the underlying causes of what happened at Marikana. So it's more the socio-economic factors, housing, sanitation, basic services to the community, the role of micro-lenders, the unions, bargaining councils, so sort of the labour issues as well. The terms of reference are quite broad. They name a number of parties, interested parties, that are being investigated, including the police, Lonmin, the unions, and the mine workers, the Department of Mineral Resources, among others. So there's a number of different interested affected parties, which is also part of the reason for the fact that the investigations are taking the time that they are, is because you have a number of parties representing various interests before the Commission of Inquiry. The Centre for Applied Legal Studies, where I work, we represent the South African Human Rights Commission before the Marikana Commission, and we became involved when the Human Rights Commission approached us in October of last year, the end of September, about the fact that they had received a complaint into what had happened at Marikana and the actions of the police. And they are under a mandate to then investigate any complaint that they receive, and so we discussed the different options and decided that it would be in the best interests that the Human Rights Commission doesn't duplicate the work of the Commission of Inquiry, but instead participates and assists the Commission of Inquiry in the work that they are doing. So the Human Rights Commission is a participant playing two main roles. The first is the role of a watching brief, where they are monitoring the process to ensure it's transparent, that it's fair, and that the procedure is in accordance with the standards of justice, and then to also bring in substantive evidence where there are gaps and it appears that no other party before the Commission is intending to address that matter. And it's through this role, the more substantive role, that the Human Rights Commission identified, and the legal team for the Human Rights Commission identified and briefed an expert on public order policing. And the main contribution of the South African Human Rights Commission has been the expert evidence of this individual. He's Mr. Gary White. He resides in Belfast, and he is a police officer, public order policing officer, with over 30 years' experience in policing demonstrations and protests in Northern Ireland. He was a police officer on the ground for many years. He also was in charge of many policing operations of protests in Northern Ireland for many years. And he was also involved on the side of policy when there was massive reform in Northern Ireland in public order policing. He was involved in the reform of the policy and the drafting of the policy as well. We submitted two statements, a provisional statement as well as a final statement more recently. The final statement is very comprehensive with a number of analyses of the evidence. There's been many hours of looking. The evidence in the Marikana Commission is massive, the videos, the photographs, the documents. And he's analysed a lot of it, and he's identified broad themes of criticism against the policing operation in Marikana during that week. And the statement is publicly available, it is exhibited before the Commission, and it's essentially a book of criticisms on what went wrong, what could have been done better, and possibly lessons learned for the future on the policing operation. Some of the broad themes that he has identified, for example, is lack of coordination and planning of the policing operation, as well as lack of transparency and accountability within the police. And this is the evidence that the Human Rights Commission has submitted to help the Commission of Inquiry fulfill its terms of reference. Just briefly, in terms of process, the process of the Marikana Commission has been a bit slow. We're still on phase 1, and the current deadline of the Commission to complete its investigation is April of next year, where the investigation needs to be complete, but we're still in, I'd say, in the middle of phase 1 of the process of the investigation. Phase 2 hasn't yet started, and there's a number of witnesses that still need to be called before the Commission actually completes its investigation. That's pretty much the overview and our involvement. I'd be very happy to answer any questions and to engage with you thereafter. Thank you.
Let's get the telephone.
Good afternoon, all. Oh wow, I didn't think I'll be here. When you asked me 1 year, 3 months ago, I definitely wouldn't have imagined myself being here, and because of what I call as police brutality, certain incident, which is one of the most brutal and most horrendous incident that has taken place post-apartheid, where police, as we say, and we submit at the commission, murder people, and claim self-defense. And obviously all of that led to the Commission of Inquiry, and I understand probably that's the reason why there's a commission that's also been established here in Khayelitsha to avoid another Marikana, to say let's deal with the issues before they go far from where they are right now. Just to talk about our involvement as SERI, as indicated, we represent 36 of the families of the miners that were killed between the 9th and the 16th of August. And I suppose the best way to explain to you, or at least make you understand, is to take you through the journey, understand what we have to deal with, to take you through the journey that we have to go through when we got involved to the commission. I mean, I remember the first day when we got to the commission, we didn't know what to expect. And one of the first things that the chairperson, which is Judge Falam, said is that let us all stand and bow our heads for those who are deceased. And he continued to read the names of all the 44 people who are deceased, and he said, we pass our condolences to the families of those. And we all turned around, and there was not even a single family member. The government basically set up a commission to inquire about the deaths of these 44 people, but no arrangements were made, or even at least inquiries were made to ask these family members to say, look, there will be an inquest, there will be an inquiry as to how your loved ones and why your loved ones were killed, and would you like to attend? And from that day on, we knew that we are in for a long haul, because from that day on, our first submission of the commission was to say, this commission, if it's about the people who were killed by the police and the police are not claiming self-defense, and those people ought to be here. And we immediately called on for the postponement of the commission up until those families are given an opportunity to come to the commission and hear how their loved ones were killed and why. And it's been a long journey for us, and we successfully managed to get the families up and running to come to the commission. I mean, 90% of them are from the Eastern Cape, probably about 34 different villages. Some are from Lesotho, some are from Swaziland. So we had to consult them, bring them to the commission, and say to the police, now explain how you killed their loved ones and how their loved ones were attacking, as you claim, and how you acted in self-defense. It's been that converging that from the beginning for the families, it has been very difficult. I mean, I remember one of the few consultations that we had with the families. The first few consultations, we will sit with the families, and as soon as we mention the name of the deceased, a family member will just cry. And obviously that's difficult because I need to take instruction and say, this is a disease, this is how he died. What do you know about him? Was he a violent person? And they couldn't, it was just crumble, and then with the end of the consultation, you have to try again the following day. But I'm glad through our involvement as say, nowadays the families have gained confidence, and they're able to consult with us and speak about their loved ones. They're able to come on the media. You can imagine part of the consultations, which was later on, we had to put presentations to the families and explain to them in terms of the post-mortem reports and say, now, the police are claiming self-defense. This is what self-defense is in a layperson's term. And you look at someone's husband or father or son even, and was shot 15 times from the back. And you have to explain to them that this is somehow self-defense. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this is not self-defense, and through all of that, I mean, the families have always said, if London was pissed off with our husbands and uncles and sons, why did they call the police on them? Why didn't they just simply fire them? They were sitting at the lobby outside the premises of London. Couldn't they just fire them? It means that they had to drop the notices from the air to say, you are all dismissed. Why did they set the police on them? And those are part of the difficulties, I'm sure. Most of you know about other difficulties that we encountered in terms of funding. There was a time where we, as the families of the those who died at Marikana, had to withdraw from the commission, the Marikana Commission of Inquiry, because the miners, who are the people who survived the killings, said to the commission, look, we don't have money, we cannot continue because we don't have funds to continue to pay our legal representations. And in solidarity, we had to withdraw. But even more so, besides in solidarity, this is our client said to us. It said, the moment of sailing, we as the families who were in our far-flung areas in the Eastern Cape, in Lesotho, wherever they come from, we were not there on the 16th. We don't know how our loved ones were killed. The police are telling us our loved ones were monsters, they were invisible and invincible because they used muti. We cannot testify against that, and the people who live to survive are the miners who are here, who are injured, some of them are arrested, and they are the guys who speak on behalf of our loved ones because they were there together. And if they are not here at the commission, then we're not going to sit in this commission and listen to one-sided commission, where the police will be telling us basically how horrible our husbands and children and fathers were. And on that basis, we had to withdraw. We approached the Pretoria High Court, we approached the Constitutional Court, went back to the Pretoria High Court, and eventually got funding. And from the Sally side, we've been quite fortunate, at least for the families, that there has been funding from the legal board, and also we represent AMCU, so there's been funding from different funders and OFS. And it's been that kind of engagement, in terms of creating relations with families and creating a voice for them and making sure they remain central to the commission. Just recently, one of the things that we are now pursuing with the families at the commission is that when we obviously our first mandate is to debunk on the whole theory that the miners were shot in self-defense. I mean, that's the whole case. So look, these guys were not shot in self-defense. And obviously you have to find other reasons, whether it was revenge, whether it was accident, whatever it is, but we have to show that the police are wrong in saying it was self-defense. But now, interestingly enough, the evidence that is now also coming out, is the involvement of lawmen, the miner employed at the commission, to say actually what was their involvement. We know that they called the police to say there are a bunch of people that we don't know, please come and deal with them. But obviously, there's also another element. We're trying to also discover the role of other forces, as they call them. There's quite some evidence that points that there is some sort of political involvement as well, or some political element that certain calls were made, and that led to that day being the day, as the Northwest Provincial Commissioner said on the day of the 16th, as you all remember, she said in a media briefing that today is D-Day. Now, we're trying to explore that and say, when she said that, did she just come up with that, or were there prior discussions? And part of that is to explore how far or how high up those instructions came from. We know that certain guys who deal with certain animals or the Big Five are involved. But we try to find out how high up that instruction came from. And we pursue that. But like I said, interestingly enough, now we're exploring the point of lawmen itself to say how far was it involved. And now we are at the critical point today even, where we as the families are crossing the mining, we're trying to establish, because we know what we discovered lately is that the police deny having shot some of the guys. And it seems as if it's a theory, and we've put it forward, and now obviously we have to sustain it. We want to show that some of these guys were actually shot by the lawmen security guys who were inside the police vehicles. Now, it's a very serious allegation to make, and obviously one has to make it with, serious backing up. And we're exploring that at the commission. We're not shy about it. We are saying that there was what we call a toxic collusion between the police and lawmen. To some extent, we even say that this actually looks like it was not even a SAPS operation. It was actually a lawman operation with the assistance of SAPS. But that's the struggles that we continue with at the commission. But lastly, just to, on the side, just apart from the commission, we have obviously been instructed to sue the police to get civil damages on behalf of the families, because obviously most of them have lost their breadwinners, and we have instituted those actions, and we'll be pursuing them as well. But we continue to pursue our mandate at the Commission, which is to make sure that the police answer to the families to how and why their families were killed. Thank you.